Now, as far as overhauling infrastructure is concerned, this is a pretty big one. The US President, Donald Trump, has laid out his vision, his blueprint, if you will, for overhauling and privatizing the country's air traffic control system. Now, he's pushing for the separation of air traffic control operations from the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, embracing an approach long championed by American carriers. Now, winning congressional approval, however, will still be an uphill battle for Mr. Trump. Democrats have largely opposed these changes and warned that the proposed board overseeing the estimated 300 air traffic facilities and around 30,000 employees would be basically dominated by airline interests. Mr. Trump's plan would also eliminate taxes on airline passengers in favor of a system of user fees instead.
We will launch this air travel revolution by modernizing the outdated system of air traffic control. It's about time. At its core, our new plan will dramatically improve America's air traffic control system by turning it over to a self-financing, nonprofit organization. This new entity will not need taxpayer money, which is very shocking when people hear that. They don't hear that too often. Under this new plan, the Federal Aviation Administration will focus firmly on what it does best: safety. A separate nonprofit entity would be charged with ensuring route efficiency, timely service, and a long-awaited reduction in delays.
Now, this is a fascinating topic. Let's dig deeper into it with Harry Horton, who joins us now live from Washington, D.C. with more data on this. Harry, doesn't this debate, though, at the outset, doesn't it conflate modernization of air traffic control with privatization of air traffic control?
Well, Donald Trump, the US president, thinks that by privatizing air traffic control, that's the best way to modernize this system here in the United States. Under his proposals, the oversight of air traffic control would be taken over by a board made up of union members, airline members, and airport members as well, and they would oversee this board. Looks after the air traffic control system in the United States after a 3-year transition period. As you mentioned, this plan would need to go through Congress, which is no easy task. Many Republicans oppose this, and even more Democrats oppose this plan. Democrats in particular think that this would hand control of a key asset over to special interests and to the airline industry. This is all part of an effort by the White House this week to try and shift focus onto their infrastructure plans and try and shift focus away from this Russia investigation that's continuing to bog down Donald Trump's administration.
Indeed. This, however, is not the first time that efforts have been made to privatize air traffic control in the United States. I believe it was tried first under the Clinton administration. There was another recent attempt in the last 12 months. Why have past efforts failed, and why is this plan different?
Well, most recently, President Obama's administration proposed more than $7 billion of reforms to try and upgrade systems in the air traffic control industry. Donald Trump said that those reforms had failed and were a total waste of money. Now, currently, the US spends around $10 billion a year on its air traffic control systems. There's great division within the aviation industry about these plans, about how to try and reform it. That's one of the reasons it's taken so long to try and introduce reforms. There's also a great division in Congress, as we mentioned. Republicans are hopeful, though, that they can pass some reforms this time. It's the first time in a very long time that Republicans have controlled all 3 branches of government in Congress and the White House. So they think now, because they have all the power in Washington, there might be an opportunity for them to get some reforms done.
Indeed, and of course, they might well strike before the midterms come along. Let's talk about Delta, though. Among other critics of the plan, the carrier has argued that the costs of this privatization will inevitably be passed on to consumers in a form of higher ticket prices, perhaps higher service charges as well. But does that match the experience of other countries that did privatize their air traffic control?
Well, we've seen in other countries around the world, many other countries introduce privatization or part privatization of their air traffic control systems. And many industry experts say that those part privatizations and privatizations have been, on the whole, quite successful. They point to examples in the UK and in Canada and New Zealand and say that they are hallmarks of why this is a good decision by the United States. But there's been difficulties too, in particular in the UK after the 9/11 terror attacks. The UK government had to bail out their air traffic control system provider because they hit financial difficulties. So the other problem for America is that because their air traffic control system is so huge compared to other countries, trying to translate the models that have worked elsewhere to the United States is very, very difficult.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you for the update. That's Harry Horton, of course, live in Washington, D.C.